So today I'm going to explain to you some of the positive effects that open adoption has on adopted children's lives. So first I want to explain exactly what an open adoption is. An open adoption is a form of adoption in which the biological and adoptive families have access in varying degrees of each other's personal information, and they have an option of different kinds of contact with each other's families. In an open adoption, the adoptive parents hold all the rights as the legal parents, but the individuals of the biological and adoptive families, they may exercise the option to open contacts in different kinds of forms. So there are two different forms of an open adoption. The first one is sending mail and just sending photos of the child and their growing process. And then the second form is the face-to-face open adoption, like visits between the birth parents and the adoptive families. So that's basically incorporating the biological parent into the child's life fully. So now that you kind of have an understanding of what an open adoption is, let's get into a couple examples of how it positively affects the families that are involved, both the biological and the adoptive family. So I found these positive benefits on a website journal which contained real-life experiences of families who were involved in open adoptions. So first of all, it gives answers to the main question. Since the adoptee will have some contact with the birth family, he or she may have a missing feeling, the missing piece kind of feeling in the child's life. So it's kind of going to give the child the opportunity to ask the big question, why was I placed for adoption? They'll be able to have answers available for them. And the need to fantasize about the family circumstance that is then removed from the equation, and the adopted child can grow up with the truth of knowing. Second, it links the child to his or her ancestry. The adoptee with an open adoption will also have access to the background of his or her heritage or their ancestry, and it's kind of going to be able to give them that claim of their identity and make them feel more comfortable with themselves. Third, the child will have a wider circle of family and support. The adoptee with an open adoption may have more family to support them with love and provide them with that, and the adoptive family may also be grateful for the extra support that's provided by other people that love their child as well. So next, the child will have information on his or her medical background. Many adoptees lack access to basic medical background information, and this information can be vital to helping medical personnel and make informed decisions on behalf of the parents or the patients. This valuable information also pertains to mental and emotional health. And lastly, there's no need to search. Many adoptees don't know the details of their adoption story and the story of the beginning of their lives. An adoptee with an open adoption will be able to have this access and the information, and they're not going to have to suffer through the adoption search, which can be really tedious. Not only can it exhaust them emotionally, but it's actually really expensive too financially if you are very serious about trying to find the adoptive parents. So now I'm going to share a brief story about a real-life young lady who decided that an open adoption was the right lifestyle for her. And she kind of shares her experience and how it really benefited her and her child as well. So over here, this is a picture of the young girl. Her name's Laura Gladden, and she was 18 years old when she gave her child up for adoption. The father of the baby left her, and she decided that she couldn't provide for her child, Kinley, and financially or emotionally anything. So Laura kind of has a couple quotes here that I'm going to share with you to explain the benefits from her point of view, not from the child. So with my open adoption, I felt so involved. I was able to meet the adoptive parents' extended family and involved in some important decision making in Kinley's life. It gives me a peace of mind knowing that they want me involved in their family, and I don't feel like that girl who gave them a baby once. I see them as an extension of my own family as well. Also, with the adoption being so open, I've been able to see how blessed and happy my child truly is. Knowing this has given me a peace and reassurance that I've made the best decision for an open adoption. Open adoption clears up so many assumptions, and it gives the birth mother some peace of mind. So as you can see, I've provided you with positive outcomes of open adoption, not just from the child's perspective, but also from the birth mother's perspective as well. Maybe if you ever consider an open adoption or adopting a child, an open adoption would be the way for you to go as well.
Is that what they did in Juneau?
Yeah. I know.
All right, well, we spent 40 minutes talking about introductions, and as part of that 40 minutes, we talked about attention devices. And I got to be honest with you folks, you know, I'm hearing a few speeches. Did you think I was doing that just because I enjoyed it? I would like to have an attention device at the start of the speech, and everybody is starting with their topic statement. You know, you're not in the third grade, you're starting a speech to an audience. Someday you're going to be speaking to a professional audience, we hope. You don't want to walk in there and say, well, my topic today is, because your audience is going to be reduced to being back in the third grade listening to you lecture at them. You've got to find some way to relate to the audience early on. Now, I like the story that you have at the end that you're telling about the woman who gave up her baby for adoption. Laura Gladden, is that her name? Mm-hmm. All right. I think that would be a good example to use as your attention device. You start off and say, Laura Gladden was a young, 18-year-old woman who was faced with a pregnancy. The man who was the father of the baby was out of her life and was not going to have anything to do with it. She looked at looked in front at the future and saw that there were going to be problems. And she thought, well, maybe adoption's a good idea, but she didn't want to be completely separated from the baby that she's giving up for adoption. And so she looked into and pursued what is known as an open adoption. What I want to share with you today is what the benefits of an open adoption are. So you've got the example already there. All you need to do is plug it in, start off, tell us a story to get started with, and then make the transition to the purpose statement. And it'll feel so much more interesting. And then you can come back and talk more about the story, like you mentioned later on, about how she felt about it being her extended family, or know that she made the right kind of decision. And by the way, I know it sounds like I'm yelling at you in particular.
I'm not. I'm constructive criticism.
I've heard several speakers who did this kind of thing. So it's I don't want. Don't feel like you're off the hook just because Kayla's on the line right now, because there are some of you out there that this should be, I should be hitting you with a giant wet noodle, smack, smack, smack. Come on, pay attention to this stuff. The topic is an interesting one. One of the things, though, I think that you could do to maybe make it a little bit more justifiable for us is talk about how many children are adopted each year. What are the numbers for? Is there a difference between the numbers between closed adoptions and open adoptions? Has that been a trend that's been changing? Some way, some context to give us a little bit more about why we're hearing about this, and once again, give us a reason to listen and care about this material. There needs to be a much stronger preview of what the subject's going to be. I know that you're going to tell us about the benefits, but break those benefits down into categories. Now, in the body of the speech, you actually do that. You do have some categories that you're talking about, but you want to lay that out early on. Remember, you're talking to audiences, and what do we talk about on listening? People are lousy listeners. So this is something you got to do for them. You got to help people listen, and it's just sometimes you got to draw them a picture.
What do you mean move the body around? What you were saying before that? You said move it around, you said put them into categories. And you said
put the benefits. Yeah, put the benefits into particular categories and preview those categories for us. So here are the emotional benefits that come from an open adoption. Here are the health benefits that come from an emotional adoption. Here are the benefits to the mother in an open adoption. All right, so categorize the information. I think you've got, I mean, you talk about it in a pattern, but if you give people a signpost, it's like you ever do those connect the dots pictures. Sometimes you gotta give people the dot numbers. You know, so let's start over here with what are the health benefits, health issues that people might be faced with when it comes to adoption. If you have a closed adoption, you don't know anything about your family's medical history. You may have no idea that there is a predilection toward heart disease, or that there is a genetic disorder that usually shows up when people are in their 20s in the family. People might not be aware that they should be on top of something and taking care of it. You know, any of you in here, if you know who your parents are and they have health issues, I'm sure that they've all been very careful to make sure that you got taken to a doctor if you know they have diabetes issues, to make sure test to make sure you don't have diabetes, or if there's a heart condition in the family, to make sure that you don't have any blockage in your arteries. Let's keep up on those things so we don't run into those problems. You wouldn't have that if you were in a closed adoption. You would miss all that kind of information that might be useful. The doctor, you know, that's like the first question that doctors ask. They ask about family history, and anybody in a closed adoption is not, you know, they're not going to be able to give any family history except, well, you know, my adoptive parents, you know, say this, and they, well, that's great, but that doesn't tell me much about you, except, you know, what your lifestyle has been. That's all. You know, so, and, you know, and then this would be a place for, maybe there's some stories about issues that have happened. Maybe there's some illustrations of this that took place. There might even be some statistical information on it. That, to me, seems like you've explained an idea just enough that we know what it is, but we don't know much about it. And you need to give us a little bit more about those kinds of things. The visuals, you know, you've got this big old poster board, and there are a whole bunch of pictures on it, and they're all up there at once. We need a pattern to figure out, well, what am I supposed to be looking at any given point? And to be honest, the pictures are a little small to see, and it's cluttered. Now, I'm not sure if it's a technological skill or I don't know what I'm doing with it when it comes to visuals online. You know, that's something we can fix. You know, that's easy to do. That's not a complicated thing. Or if it's a preference, I like the idea of the poster board because I could use it if I was doing this speech someplace else. Maybe I want to give this presentation in another class, or I'm going to do it for my sister's Girl Scout troop, or you know, I'm going to be talking about it in a presentation that I'm doing some, you know, who knows where. And you like the idea of that, which is okay, but it's got to be planned a little bit more like that. And it just feels like, I don't want to say slapped together, but it does feel a little bit like there's just not much of a goal on all of those pictures. There's probably a reason that you pick the pictures, but I'm not sure we know what your reason for picking the pictures is. You know, and that's what we're supposed to get out of this. You got to help the audience. Think of it from the audience's point of view. How is this going to help us understand or be interested in this material that's going on? And so that needs to just be planned a little bit more. So it feels like you went to the effort to have the visuals. There's probably a little bit connection. When you pointed to the picture of Laura Gladden and the family there, okay, that was one place where I could see there's clearly something that's part of what we're talking about right now, and we can kind of see this relationship that's going on here. You know, it's not a perfect illustration, but at least I know why that picture's there. All the others, I don't know what's going on.
I was pointing to them throughout.
Yeah,
You
know, the picture of the sad person sitting on the corner, was that, yeah, you know, they're going to feel isolated, and, you know, I know you're trying to look for a way to visualize that idea, but I'm not sure that it works. So by the way, are we supposed to be reading it left to right?
Well, that's typically how people
Yeah. Well, not necessarily. A lot of people read, you know, clockwise.
Oh.
You know, and your images are not, you know, being revealed left to right. They're all revealed at once. You know, and sometimes people just, what's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? You know, there's got to be a plan. Like I said, there's got to be a reason that you're showing those things, and you don't have as much control when it's all up at one time. All right. I didn't think you did as much reading as some of the other speakers have done. I appreciated that. You seemed to know what you wanted to talk about for the most part. You did have the material written out. I could tell that you had practiced these things and what you wanted to say. But you still have those big pages in your hand, and that really looks distracting. And even though you're not always staring at it, it's always there, waving in front of us. Now, that's not a big deal on this go-round, but the next go-round we're doing speeches where you really have to work on your delivery skills, and everybody, you're not going to have anything in your hands. There's not going to be any notes. There's not going to be anything. You know, there's no podium for you to hide behind. You're going to be standing up and talking to us. That's it. That's it.
That's scary.
You know.
We're all-
So we're gonna get you to that. We're gonna get you to that point.